The council chambers stretched wide, like a massive dome above the clouds of Proxima Centauri. Hundreds of alien species filled the curved benches that rose in tiers toward the ceiling. The air smelled strange to human noses, a mixture of methane and something sweet that made Ambassador Daniel Hayes want to cough. He sat in the human section with Katie Morrison beside him, both wearing their formal diplomatic uniforms. They had come here believing this would be a simple negotiation about trade routes and mining rights. Daniel looked around at the assembled aliens. The Velcran looked almost human, except for their silver skin and triple-jointed arms. The Thraxi resembled giant insects with clicking mandibles. The Mersal floated in tanks of water, their tentacles moving in slow patterns. There were dozens of other species, all watching as the session began. High Arbiter Thelnox stood at the central podium. He was Velcran, tall and imposing with eyes that reflected light like mirrors. When he spoke, his voice boomed through translation devices that everyone wore. "We gather today to address serious violations by the human species," Thelnox announced. Daniel felt his stomach drop. Violations? This was supposed to be about expanding their trade agreement. He glanced at Katie, who looked equally confused. She shuffled through her papers, searching for any indication of what was happening. The Velcran Arbiter activated a holographic display. Images appeared in the air above the chamber floor. They showed human mining ships near a protected nebula. They showed colony vessels entering restricted space. They showed what appeared to be human warships firing on neutral traders. These images prove that humanity has broken 17 separate treaty clauses, Thelnox declared. They mine in forbidden zones. They expand into protected territories. They attack peaceful vessels. Daniel shot to his feet. "Those images are false. We have never authorized attacks on civilian ships. Our colonies operate within agreed boundaries." But Thelnox raised one triple-jointed hand. "You will speak when permitted, human." The word human came out like an insult. Several alien species in the chamber made sounds that the translators rendered as laughter. Daniel felt his face grow hot with anger and embarrassment. Back on Earth, Admiral Greg Coleman watched the proceedings from the military command center beneath Geneva. The massive screens showed every angle of the council session. Beside him, Colonel Lisa Bennett gripped the edge of the table so hard her knuckles turned white. "This is a setup," Lisa said quietly. "Those images are fabricated. Our ships have tracking data that proves we were nowhere near those locations. But they're not giving Hayes a chance to present evidence." On the screen, the council continued its assault on humanity's reputation. The Thraxi representative clicked forward on insectoid legs. When he spoke, his words came out in rapid bursts. "The Thraxi Dominion supports all sanctions against humanity. They are aggressive. They are deceitful. They should not have been granted council membership." More laughter echoed through the chamber. Katie Morrison tried to activate her own data display to show their evidence, but the system had been locked. Someone had made sure the humans could not defend themselves. The Mersal representative spoke next, her voice bubbling through her water tank. "The humans claim 3 colony worlds. We propose these worlds be placed under joint supervision until humanity proves itself capable of responsible governance." Daniel felt the blood drain from his face. They wanted to take control of New Dakota, Havens Reach, and Clearwater Station. Those colonies held nearly 2 million human citizens, families, children, people who had left Earth to build new lives. "You cannot do this," Daniel said, his voice rising. "Those are sovereign human territories." Thelnox smiled, and it was not a kind expression. "They were granted to you by council authority. That authority can be revoked." The vote happened quickly. Species after species raised their agreement. The holographic tally showed overwhelming support. Humanity's territory was reduced by 40%. Their colony worlds were declared provisional and placed under alien oversight. Trade routes were restricted to a fraction of what they had been. Earth's military was ordered to reduce its fleet size by half. Then came the final insult. Felnox looked directly at Daniel Hayes and spoke slowly, clearly, making sure every word was translated perfectly. Humanity is hereby declared a species on probation. You are young. You are primitive. You lack the wisdom to govern yourselves properly. Perhaps in a few centuries, when you have matured under the guidance of superior civilizations, you will be ready to rejoin the Council as full members. The chamber erupted in sounds of approval. Clicking, whistling, burbling laughter from 100 different species. They were celebrating humanity's humiliation. Katie Morrison had tears in her eyes, though she fought to hold them back. Daniel stood frozen, his hands clenched into fists at his sides. Every instinct screamed at him to lash out, to fight, to do something. But he was one man standing before the assembled power of 1,000 worlds. The session ended, the feed cut off, but not before billions of humans watching from Earth saw their representatives treated like children being scolded. The images spread across every network, every social platform, every news service. Humanity had been mocked in front of the galaxy. In the Geneva Command Center, Admiral Coleman stood slowly. Around him, military officers sat in stunned silence. Colonel Bennett looked like she wanted to put her fists through the screen. "Get me every ship, Captain," Greg said quietly. His voice was calm, but there was something cold beneath it. "Every single one. I don't care where they are or what they're doing. I want them on encrypted channels within the hour." Lisa looked at him. "Sir?" Greg Coleman had served in Earth's military for 30 years. He had fought in the Colony Wars. He had negotiated peace treaties. He had always believed in following rules and respecting authority. But right now, watching the replay of Ambassador Hayes being told that humanity needed guidance from superior species, something changed in his eyes. "They think we're children," he said. "They think we'll accept this." "What are we going to do?" Lisa asked. Greg turned to look at the star map on the wall, showing Earth's territories and the new restricted zones. All those red lines cutting through human space. All those limitations placed on a species that had clawed its way to the stars through determination and sacrifice. "We're going to show them what happens when you humiliate humanity," he said. "Get me General Foster. Get me the fleet commanders. And get me everyone who has access to the weapons we're not supposed to have." Lisa understood immediately. Her expression hardened. "The treaty violations?" "There are no treaties anymore," Greg said. "They just tore them all up. They just don't know it yet." Earth went silent. For 72 hours after the Council humiliation, humanity issued no statements, no protests, no appeals to the galactic community. The major news networks expected angry speeches from world leaders. The Council expected desperate pleas for reconsideration. Instead, there was nothing but quiet. In the Velcran command center on their homeworld, Intelligence Officer Kethral found the silence disturbing. He brought his concerns to his superior. "The humans are too quiet," he said. "They should be organizing protests, filing appeals, but their diplomatic channels are completely silent." His superior, a senior Velcran commander, dismissed the concern with a wave of his triple-jointed hand. "They are defeated, humiliated. They have accepted their place." But Kethral was not convinced. He had studied humans more than most Velcran. Their history showed a pattern. Humans did not accept defeat quietly. They adapted. They planned. They struck back. On Earth, the silence was deliberate. In the command center beneath Geneva, General Ryan Foster had assembled the largest virtual war council in human history. Every ship captain, every colony governor, every military commander, thousands of faces filled the holographic displays around the circular room. "We have 72 hours before the Council expects our formal response," Ryan said. His voice was calm, measured. In that time, we need to move every military asset into position. This needs to be coordinated perfectly. If even one ship is out of place, the whole plan fails. Captain Jake Sullivan sat in the command chair of the destroyer Defiance, currently on patrol near the Kepler belt. His encrypted orders had come through an hour ago. They were simple, but shocking. He read them again to make sure he understood correctly. Proceed to staging area Whiskey 7. Maintain radio silence. Await, execute order. Jake had commanded the Defiance for 3 years. He had fought pirates and escorted colony ships, but he had never seen orders like these. Every human military vessel was being repositioned. He pulled up a tactical map and felt his breath catch. If every ship followed their orders, Earth would have its entire fleet concentrated in attack formation. On the carrier Resolute, Commander Beth Andrews ran through similar calculations. She commanded a battle group of 6 ships. Her orders directed her toward a staging area near Jupiter. When she plotted the courses of other battle groups she could detect, a pattern emerged. They were forming a hammer, ready to strike. Beth called her senior officers to the briefing room. They gathered around the tactical display, and she showed them what she had figured out. "We're going to war," she said simply. Her weapons officer, a young lieutenant named Danny Morris, looked shocked. "Against the entire council. Against whoever gave the orders to humiliate us," Beth replied. "Against whoever decided to take our colonies. Against whoever thinks humanity will just accept this." At Luna Base, the massive shipyard facility orbiting Earth's moon, engineer Paul Martinez worked without sleep for 48 hours straight. His team was retrofitting civilian transport ships with military equipment. The work violated a dozen safety regulations and at least 20 treaty clauses. Paul did not care. He watched as workers welded shield generators onto a colony transport named Prairie Wind. The ship was supposed to carry farming equipment and families to New Dakota. Instead, it was being converted to carry troops and weapons. "How many can we convert?" his supervisor asked. Paul checked his list. "We have 37 civilian transports currently docked. We can retrofit 23 of them before the deadline. The others don't have strong enough power cores to handle military shields. Do all 23. On New Dakota, the colonists received their own orders. Mayor Chris Sullivan called a town meeting in the main settlement. 5,000 people gathered in the agricultural dome, confused about why they had been summoned. Chris stood on the platform and spoke clearly. "The council has assigned Velcran oversight officers to our colony. They arrive in 6 hours. When they get here, I want every human to walk away from their posts. Lock the doors, shut down the systems, give them nothing." A woman in the crowd raised her hand. "What if they force us to cooperate?" "They won't," Chris said, "because we won't be here. Everyone is to evacuate to the underground shelters. Take only essential supplies. We're going dark until Earth tells us otherwise." The colonists understood. This was resistance. Quiet, organized resistance. In a secure facility deep beneath the Colorado mountains, Dr. Helen Carter prepared a briefing that would change everything. She had worked for 15 years in Earth's Classified Weapons Division. Most of what her team created was designed to defend against potential alien threats. But some projects went further. General Foster arrived at the facility with Admiral Coleman and Colonel Bennett. Helen led them to the main laboratory, where her team had assembled displays of their most advanced weapons. "These systems violate the weapons treaties we signed with the Council," Helen said without preamble. "Every single one of them breaks galactic law." She activated the first display. A railgun design appeared, showing a weapon that could accelerate projectiles to a fraction of light speed. "This punches through any known shielding. We have 12 of them ready to deploy." The next display showed plasma mines that could be seeded in space, creating invisible defensive fields. Then came kinetic kill vehicles, essentially large chunks of metal accelerated to devastating speeds. No explosives needed, just mass and velocity. Finally, Helen showed them the Nova Protocol. The screen displayed a star, with targeting overlays. This is a stellar destabilization weapon. We deliver a payload to a star's corona. It triggers a massive magnetic disruption. The resulting coronal mass ejection can be directed at a target planet. Ryan Foster stared at the display. You built a weapon that can damage entire solar systems. We built a deterrent, Helen corrected. We never thought we would actually need to use it. Do you have targeting data for the Velcran home system? Ryan asked. Helen pulled up the information immediately. Complete stellar mapping. We know exactly where to place the payload for maximum effect. Lisa Bennett spoke up. If we use something like this, there's no going back. The galaxy will see us as monsters. They already see us as primitive children, Admiral Coleman said. Maybe it's time they see us as something else, something dangerous. Across Earth's communication networks, a video started spreading. It was not from any government or official source. A man named Sam Jackson, a veteran who had fought in the early colony conflicts, recorded it from his kitchen in Texas. Sam sat at his kitchen table, looking tired but angry. He spoke directly to the camera. You all saw what happened at the council. They laughed at us. They took our homes. They called us primitive. They said we need guidance from superior species. Sam paused, his jaw tight. I fought for 10 years to protect our colonies. I lost friends. I lost part of my leg. So, some alien with silver skin could tell us we're not good enough. He leaned forward. They think we're going to accept this. They think we'll just bow our heads and take it. But they don't know us. They don't know what humans do when you back us into a corner. They're about to find out. The video went viral within hours. Millions of people shared it. Then tens of millions. The sentiment spread across Earth like wildfire. Humanity had been humiliated, and humanity was angry. In the Geneva Command Center, Ryan Foster watched the video with interest. The people are ready, he said. Ready for what? Lisa asked. For war, Ryan replied. The Council thinks our silence means surrender. They're monitoring our diplomatic channels, waiting for us to beg for mercy. They have no idea what we're actually doing. Admiral Coleman checked the fleet status display. Ship after ship reported ready status. 893 vessels, all in position, all waiting for the execute order. How long until the Velcran oversight officers reach our colonies? Ryan asked. 18 hours, Lisa reported. Ryan nodded. Then we have 18 hours to finish preparations. After that, we respond. The transport ship Meridian Hope traveled through space on its way back to Earth. It was a civilian vessel, carrying 500 colonists from Haven's Reach. These were families who had decided to return home before the alien oversight took control of their colony. The ship had no weapons. It was designed to carry people, not fight wars. Captain Nina Ross sat in the command chair, watching the navigation displays. She had flown civilian transports for 12 years. This trip should have been routine, but nothing felt routine anymore. Not after what happened at the council. Her communications officer spoke up. Captain, we have 3 vessels approaching. They're Velcran patrol ships. Nina felt her stomach tighten. Hail them. Let them know we're a civilian transport on a registered flight path. The Velcran squadron leader appeared on the main screen. His silver skin reflected the bridge lights. His eyes showed no warmth. Transport vessel, you will power down your shields and prepare for boarding, the Velcran said. We are authorized to search for contraband military equipment. We're a civilian ship, Nina replied, keeping her voice steady. We're carrying colonist families. We have no military equipment. That is for us to determine. Power down your shields immediately. Nina looked at her crew. They had 300 children aboard. Families. People who just wanted to go home. She thought about the images from the council, the way the aliens had laughed at humanity's representatives. "Negative," she said. "You have no authority to board this vessel. We're in open space, following approved routes. We will continue to Earth." The Velcran's expression hardened. "You have 10 seconds to comply." Nina counted the seconds in her head. At 8 seconds, the Velcran ships opened fire. The Meridian Hope's shields blazed as energy weapons struck them. The civilian shields were not designed for combat. They failed within 30 seconds. Alarms screamed through the ship. Children cried in the passenger compartments. Parents held them close. "Seal all compartments," Nina ordered. "Emergency protocols." But it was too late. Velcran boarding pods slammed into the hull. The sound of cutting tools echoed through the ship as the aliens burned through the outer doors. Nina activated the ship's emergency transmitter, broadcasting everything that was happening on all frequencies. Earth would see this. The galaxy would see this. Velcran soldiers poured into the Meridian Hope. They wore combat armor and carried weapons designed to stun rather than kill. They swept through the corridors, forcing crew members to the ground. They herded passengers into the cargo holds, treating them like criminals. In the main passenger area, a woman named Laura Martin held her 2 children close. The boy was 6, the girl was 4. They were crying, terrified by the armed aliens surrounding them. When a Velcran soldier pointed his weapon at them, Laura put herself between the gun and her children. "Please," she said. "They're just kids." The Velcran soldier did not respond. He just gestured for her to move to the cargo hold with the others. On the bridge, Velcran soldiers dragged Nina from her command chair. She fought, but they were stronger. They put restraints on her wrists and pulled her toward the airlock where their boarding pod waited. The Velcran squadron leader broadcast his report to the Galactic Council on open channels. "Human vessel secured, no weapons found. Detaining crew for questioning, per occupation protocols." That word echoed across space. Occupation. The Velcran had called it an occupation. They were not just enforcing sanctions, they were occupying human territory, taking control by force. On Earth, every screen showed the footage from the Meridian Hope. The images spread across networks instantly. Children crying, families held at gunpoint, a civilian captain dragged away in restraints, and that word, occupation. In the Geneva Command Center, General Ryan Foster watched the feed with an expression like stone. Around him, officers sat in shocked silence. Admiral Coleman's hands gripped the edge of the table so hard his fingers went white. "They fired on civilians," Lisa Bennett said, her voice shaking with rage. "They boarded a ship full of families." Ryan stood slowly. He looked at the fleet status display. 893 ships, all in position, all waiting for orders. "Execute Burning Sky," he said quietly. The order went out on encrypted channels. Within seconds, every human military vessel in the solar system received the same message. Just 2 words in Admiral Coleman's voice. Weapons free. Across human space, ships that had been waiting in silent readiness suddenly came alive. Weapons systems powered up. Targeting computers activated. Crews rushed to battle stations. On the destroyer Defiance, Captain Jake Sullivan heard the order and felt something cold settle in his chest. This was it. This was war. "All hands to battle stations," he announced. "Charge the main guns. Prepare for combat jump." Commander Beth Andrews received the order aboard the Resolute. She looked at her tactical officer. "Launch all fighters. Bring the battle group to full combat readiness. We jump in 5 minutes." Earth's diplomats sent one final message to the Galactic Council. It was not a protest or an appeal. Ambassador Daniel Hayes recorded it himself, standing in an empty room. His face showed no emotion. His voice was perfectly calm. "You humiliated us in open council. You laughed at us. You took our worlds. You fired on our civilians. We are now at war. There will be no negotiations. There will be no quarter. And when this is over, every treaty that bound us will be ash. You should have left us alone. The transmission was 12 seconds long. Then it ended. In the council chamber on Proxima Centauri, High Arbiter Thelnox watched the human message with amusement. Around him, various alien species chittered and whistled in what translated as laughter. "Empty human bluster," Thelnox announced to the assembly. "They have perhaps a dozen warships. We command thousands across hundreds of worlds. What can they possibly do?" But Kethral, the young Velcran intelligence officer, was frantically reviewing sensor data. He had been monitoring human space, watching for any unusual activity. What he found made his blood run cold. He rushed to Thelnox with a data tablet. "High Arbiter, we need to recall our forces immediately." Thelnox looked annoyed at the interruption. "What are you talking about?" "The humans, sir. Our sensors show massive energy signatures throughout their system. They're powering weapons on a scale we've never seen." "How many ships are we detecting?" Kethral checked his readings again, hoping he had made a mistake. He had not. 893 vessels, sir, and they are all armed. They are all moving toward attack positions. The council chamber went silent. Species that had been laughing moments ago now looked at each other in confusion and growing worry. "That's impossible," Thelnox said. "Our intelligence said they had minimal military capability." "Our intelligence was wrong," Kethral said. "The humans have been building ships for years. They hid most of their fleet in the outer solar system, disguised as mining vessels and cargo haulers. They've been preparing for this." Thelnox activated the long-range sensors himself. The data confirmed what Kethral reported. Hundreds of human vessels were moving into formation. Energy signatures showed weapons charging, jump drives warming up. For the first time, the High Arbiter felt something he had not expected to feel: fear. "Send a message to all Council forces," he ordered. "Tell them the humans may attempt some form of retaliation. Increase defensive readiness." But the order came too late. At exactly 0300 Galactic Standard Time, 90 minutes after the attack on the Meridian Hope, humanity struck back. The first targets were the Velcran oversight stations orbiting the 3 human colony worlds. The attacks came simultaneously, coordinated across light-years of space. Captain Sullivan's Defiance dropped out of faster-than-light travel directly above the station at New Dakota. The destroyer was close enough that the Velcran had no time to respond. Jake gave the order without hesitation. "Full broadside. Fire everything." The Defiance unleashed every weapon it had: missiles, energy cannons, kinetic rounds. The Velcran station's shields flared and collapsed under the assault. Explosions ripped through the structure. 200 Velcran officers died in seconds. Before the debris had even begun to spread, the Defiance jumped back into hyperspace, vanishing as quickly as it had appeared. At Haven's Reach, Commander Beth Andrews led a wolf pack of 6 destroyers against the Thraxi monitoring base. They did not even slow down. They just launched every missile they carried, while passing at full speed. The base tried to return fire, but the human ships were already gone. The missiles struck in a coordinated pattern, overwhelming the base's defenses. The structure broke apart, burning as it fell toward the planet below. At Clearwater Station, the colonists watched from underground shelters as Captain Oliver Grant's frigate Northern Star systematically destroyed every Velcran vessel in orbit. There were 4 of them, and they fought back hard. But the Northern Star had experimental kinetic shields, part of the illegal weapons program. The Velcran energy weapons splashed harmlessly off the shields. Oliver picked them off one by one. When a Thraxi dreadnought arrived to reinforce the Velcran forces, Oliver made a decision. Full thrust, ram them. His crew had seconds to evacuate in escape pods, before the Northern Star slammed into the dreadnought at full combat speed. The kinetic shields tore through the alien ship's hull like paper. Both vessels exploded in a massive fireball, visible from the planet's surface. The war had begun, and humanity was not holding back. The reports flooded into the Galactic Council faster than anyone could process them. Velcran oversight stations destroyed. Thraxi monitoring bases gone. Mersal observation posts reduced to debris. Every alien installation in human territory was being systematically eliminated. High Arbiter Thelnox stood in the Council Command Center, watching tactical displays that showed disaster after disaster. His silver skin had gone pale. "How is this possible?" he demanded. "Where did they get so many ships?" Kethril pulled up intelligence reports. "We underestimated them completely. They built their military in secret for decades. Every cargo hauler they claimed was for mining. Every transport they said was civilian. Many of them were warships in disguise." On the display, another Velcran position went dark. Then another. The humans were not trying to hold territory. They were just destroying everything. "Send reinforcements to our positions," Thelnox ordered. "We are trying, sir, but by the time our ships arrive, the humans are already gone. They jump in, destroy the target, and jump out before we can respond. We cannot catch them." Admiral Greg Coleman commanded the human fleet from his flagship Vengeance. The massive carrier led a battle group of 30 ships deep into Velcran territory. They were not going to defend Earth's colonies. They were taking the war to the enemy's home. On the bridge, tactical displays showed the Velcran home system ahead. 5 planets orbited a yellow sun. The third planet was Velcran Prime, home to 20 billion aliens. Massive orbital shipyards surrounded it. Defense platforms dotted the system. This was the heart of Velcran power. "All ships, battle formation," Greg ordered. "We are going straight through their defenses. Target military installations only." Shipyards, platforms, supply depots, nothing else. His weapons officer looked uncertain. "Sir, their home fleet is responding. We count over 200 vessels." "By the time they get here, we will be done," Greg said calmly. The human fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Velcran system. Every ship immediately launched missiles and began charging energy weapons. They did not slow down. They accelerated toward the inner system at full combat speed. The Velcran defense platforms opened fire first. Energy beams and missiles filled the space between planets. But the human ships had those experimental kinetic shields. Most of the attacks deflected harmlessly away. The destroyer Ice Runner took a direct hit that collapsed its shields. The ship vented atmosphere and lost power. But the other 29 ships kept going. "Target the orbital shipyards," Greg commanded. The human fleet unleashed everything. Missiles with plasma warheads, kinetic rounds traveling at tremendous speeds, railgun shots that punched through armor like it was paper. The Velcran shipyards, massive structures that could build 10 ships at once, exploded in sequence. Each one took months to build. The humans destroyed them in minutes. The defense platforms fired desperately, but human ships swarmed around them like angry hornets. The platforms were designed to fight off single attackers or small raiding parties, not an entire fleet moving at combat speed. One by one, the platforms went dark. Explosions lit up the space around Velcran Prime like fireworks. "Velcran home fleet is arriving," the tactical officer reported. 234 vessels. "We are done here," Greg said. "All ships jump on my mark." The human fleet vanished into hyperspace just as the Velcran reinforcements arrived. The Velcran found only debris and burning wreckage. Their defense platforms were destroyed, and the humans had escaped without significant losses. Admiral Coleman broadcast a message on all galactic frequencies. Every species heard it. Every world received it. You wanted to see what humans do when cornered? Keep watching. On Earth, Colonel Lisa Bennett led a special operations team that would become legendary. She had handpicked her people for this mission. Aaron Cooper, the best tech specialist in the military. Kelly Price, an infiltration expert who could slip past almost any security. And 6 others, all volunteers. Their target was a Mersal diplomatic station in neutral space. The station served as a communications hub for Council operations. More importantly, intelligence suggested it held complete records of Council communications. The team approached in a stealth ship designed to avoid detection. It was basically a box with engines and a cloaking system. Cramped and uncomfortable, but invisible to most sensors. "We have 1 hour," Lisa said as they prepared to board. "Get in, grab the data, get out. If we are detected, the entire Council fleet will come down on us." They attached to the station's docking port using magnetic clamps. Aaron went to work on the airlock, bypassing the security in under 3 minutes. The team slipped inside. The Mersal were aquatic aliens. Their stations were filled with water. Lisa and her team wore enclosed suits that allowed them to move through the liquid environment. They followed the mapped route toward the central data core. 2 Mersal guards floated past them in the corridor. The team pressed against the walls, relying on their suits' stealth coating to hide them. The guards continued on, seeing nothing unusual. They reached the data core. Aaron plugged his equipment into the access port and began downloading files. "This is going to take 20 minutes, he whispered. Lisa checked her tactical display. "We have time. Everyone stay alert." The files that Aaron downloaded proved everything. Months of communications between Velcran, Fraxi, and Mersal leaders. Plans to humiliate humanity at the Council. Fabricated evidence. Coordination to reduce human territory. All of it carefully organized to make humanity look aggressive and primitive. There were also financial records. The Velcran had paid several smaller species to vote against humanity. They had bribed Council officials. The whole thing was a conspiracy designed to neutralize Earth before humans became too powerful. "Download complete," Aaron said. "We have everything." They made it back to their ship without being detected. As soon as they were clear of the station, Lisa sent the files to Earth. Within minutes, the information was being broadcast across every communication network in the galaxy. The political impact was immediate. Several species that had voted against humanity now saw they had been manipulated. The Aurelian Federation issued a formal statement condemning the Velcran actions. The crystalline minds, silicon-based beings who prided themselves on logic and fairness, declared the Council actions illegal. Even some Velcran were outraged. Kethral, the young intelligence officer, resigned his position in protest. He broadcast his own message to his people. "We have dishonored ourselves. We lied. We cheated. We attacked civilians. This is not who we are supposed to be. I will not serve a government that behaves this way." The Velcran Consortium, humiliated by the revelation and desperate to save face, made the worst possible decision. In a secret meeting, Felnox and his military commanders authorized the deployment of planet-killer weapons. Massive orbital bombardment systems that could sterilize a world. They would use them against the human colonies. "If we cannot control the humans, we will destroy their ability to expand," Felnox said. "Target New Dakota, Haven's Reach, and Clearwater Station. Prepare the weapons." But the Velcran did not know that humans had infiltrated their secure networks. Every communication they sent was being intercepted. Earth's intelligence services heard about the planet killer authorization within minutes. In the Geneva Command Center, General Ryan Foster received the report. His face went white as he read it. "They are going to attack our colonies with planet killers," he said to Admiral Coleman. "They are planning to kill millions of civilians." Greg felt rage build in his chest. How long until their weapons are in position? 48 hours. Then we have 48 hours to stop them, Ryan said. He turned to Dr. Helen Carter, who had been monitoring the military operations. The Nova Protocol. Is it ready? Helen nodded slowly. She had hoped they would never actually use it. We have a stealth ship prepared. We have the payload. We have targeting data for the Velcran home system star. Ryan made the hardest decision of his life. Deploy it. Commander Steve Wright volunteered to pilot the mission. He was a veteran of the Colony Wars, a skilled pilot, and a man who understood what was at stake. His crew consisted of 4 others, all volunteers. They knew this was essentially a suicide mission. Their ship, a modified stealth corvette named Silent Arrow, carried the Nova Protocol device, a weapon designed to destabilize a star's magnetic field and trigger a massive coronal mass ejection. Steve stood on the bridge, looking at his crew. Everyone understands what we're doing? They nodded. One of them, a young navigator named Chris Hall, spoke up. We're saving millions of lives. If those planet killers reach our colonies, everyone dies. This is the only way to stop them. The Silent Arrow slipped through space undetected. The stealth systems worked perfectly. They reached the Velcran home system without triggering any alarms. Steve piloted the ship close to the star, closer than was safe, closer than was sane. The heat shields screamed in protest. Alarms warned of critical system stress. Deploying payload, Steve said calmly. They released the Nova Protocol device into the star's corona. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the device activated. The star's magnetic field began to twist and distort. Energy built up in massive loops. Get us out of here, Steve ordered. The Silent Arrow burned its engines at maximum power, racing away from the star. Behind them, the sun's surface erupted. A coronal mass ejection, billions of tons of superheated plasma burst from the star's surface. The magnetic weapon directed it toward Velcran Prime. We did it, Chris said, watching the sensors. The ejection is on course. Steve's hands shook on the controls. They had actually done it. They had weaponized a star. Command, this is Silent Arrow. Package delivered. Getting clear. Tell them this is what happens when you threaten our children. The ship made it out of the system, barely. The heat damage was severe, but they survived. Behind them, the coronal mass ejection struck Velcran Prime 12 hours later. It did not destroy the planet, but it stripped away the upper atmosphere. Every satellite was destroyed. Every orbital station burned. Communications went dark. Power grids failed. Velcran Prime would survive, but it would take decades to recover. And the Velcran Consortium's ability to wage war died in that moment. The coronal mass ejection hit Velcran Prime like the wrath of an angry god. Billions of tons of superheated plasma struck the planet's magnetic field and tore it apart. The upper atmosphere burned away. Every satellite in orbit simply ceased to exist, vaporized in an instant. Orbital stations had just enough time to register what was happening before they too were consumed. On the surface, the Velcran people watched their sky turn into a wall of fire. Emergency shelters sealed. Underground facilities went into lockdown. The planet's power grid failed as electromagnetic pulses destroyed everything electronic. Felnox stood in a bunker beneath the capital city, watching his world burn through the few cameras that still worked. His silver skin had gone completely pale. Around him, officials screamed orders and tried to coordinate rescue efforts, but there was nothing to be done. The damage was catastrophic. They used our own star as a weapon, he whispered. How is that possible? Kethral, who had resigned, but still monitored the situation from his home, sent a simple message to the council on one of the few working communication channels. This is what happens when you underestimate humans. This is what happens when you laugh at them. This is what happens when you threaten their children. You brought this on us. The Thraxi Dominion heard about Velcran Prime, and immediately understood the message. Humanity was willing to destroy entire solar systems to protect itself. The Thraxi leadership convened an emergency session that lasted less than an hour. Their ambassador sent a message to Earth on every available channel. The Thraxi Dominion formally requests a ceasefire. We withdraw all claims to human territory. We seek immediate peace negotiations. The Mersal unity followed within hours. Their aquatic leaders had no desire to see their own worlds burned by stellar weapons. They too requested peace. Across the galaxy, species that had laughed at humanity in the council chamber now looked at each other in fear. The humans had gone from humiliated children to the most dangerous species in known space in less than a week. On Earth, the response was careful and controlled. General Ryan Foster and Admiral Greg Coleman coordinated the military stand-down. Ships remained on high alert, but active combat operations ceased. They had made their point. Ambassador Daniel Hayes received a message from the Galactic Council. High Arbiter Felnox, speaking from a bunker on his dying world, offered unconditional surrender. We request immediate ceasefire. We acknowledge human sovereignty. We seek peace. Daniel looked at the message for a long time. He thought about how they had laughed at him in the council chamber, how they had called humanity primitive, how they had taken human colonies and placed them under alien control, how they had fired on the Meridian Hope and terrorized 500 civilians. He drafted a response, then sent it to Katie Morrison for review. She read it and nodded. They need to know this was their choice. They need to understand what they brought on themselves. The response went out to the entire council. Daniel's message was simple and direct. Humanity accepts your surrender. We will attend the council to present our terms. But understand this. We did not want this war. You forced it upon us. You humiliated us. You stole our territory. You fired on our civilians. Every action we took was in response to your aggression. Remember that when you see Velcran Prime burning. You did this to yourselves. 3 days later, the council reconvened. The chamber that had hosted humanity's humiliation now hosted their triumph. Daniel Hayes walked to the central floor with Katie Morrison beside him. Around them, alien species watched in silence. There was no laughter now, no clicking approval, just fear and respect. Daniel did not smile. He did not gloat. He simply presented humanity's terms. All treaties that restricted human expansion are hereby dissolved. Earth recognizes no authority over its territory except its own. The 3 colony worlds of New Dakota, Havens Reach, and Clearwater Station are recognized as sovereign human territory with no exceptions, no oversight, no limitations. He continued through the list. Economic sanctions not just lifted, but reversed. The Velcran, Thraxi, and Mersal would pay reparations to Earth for the damages caused by their conspiracy. The amounts were substantial, enough to rebuild the Ice Runner and compensate the families of every human who died in the conflict. Furthermore, Daniel said, his voice carrying through the silent chamber, humanity claims the right to maintain an unrestricted military force. We will build as many ships as we want. We will develop any weapons we choose, and we will never, ever submit to council oversight again. A Thraxi representative raised a claw hesitantly. And if we agree to these terms, will you cease military operations? Daniel looked at the insectoid alien. We already have. We are not conquerors. We do not seek your territory or your resources. We simply want to be left alone. The vote was unanimous. Every species agreed to humanity's terms. They had no choice. The alternative was to continue a war against an enemy that had proven willing to burn worlds. The formal documents were signed. Humanity was now completely independent, bound by no treaties, restricted by no laws except their own. They were free. But the victory felt hollow. Captain Nina Ross was recovered from Velcran custody 2 days after the ceasefire. She had been held in a detention facility, questioned repeatedly about human military capabilities. When she returned to Earth, she was thin and exhausted. The trauma of watching her ship boarded, her passengers terrorized, showed in her eyes. She attended a ceremony where she received a medal for her courage. She accepted it without smiling. "I did nothing brave," she told the crowd. "I just tried to protect my passengers. I failed. If not for what happened after, those families would still be prisoners." Commander Steve Wright and his crew received similar honors. They had piloted the mission that changed the war. But Steve refused to celebrate. "We used a star as a weapon," he said in a quiet interview. "We turned a sun into a gun and pointed it at a planet. Yes, we saved millions of lives on our colonies. But we also condemned Velcran Prime to decades of suffering. That is not something to celebrate." The families of those who died received flag-draped coffins and solemn ceremonies. Captain Oliver Grant, who had rammed his ship into a Thraxi dreadnought, was remembered as a hero. His wife and 2 children stood at his funeral, trying to be brave. On New Dakota, Mayor Chris Sullivan led the effort to rebuild. The Velcran oversight officers were gone. The colonists emerged from their shelters to find their world unchanged. But they knew how close they had come to annihilation. "We need to remember this," Chris told the Colony Council. "We need to remember that our freedom was bought with blood and fire, and we need to make sure it was worth the price." Sam Jackson, the veteran who had recorded the viral video from his kitchen, recorded one final message. He looked older now, tired. "We won," he said to the camera. "Earth is free. Our colonies are secure. The aliens who laughed at us are now afraid of us. But winning feels like ash in your mouth when you realize what we had to do to get here." He paused, looking directly at the lens. "Maybe that's the price. Maybe that's what they never understood about us. We don't want to be warriors. We don't want to burn worlds. We just want to live our lives, raise our children, build our homes. But when you take everything from us, when you laugh while doing it, when you threaten our families, well, you learn what happens." Sam turned off the camera. The video spread across Earth's networks, but this time there were no celebrations, just quiet understanding. In the Geneva Command Center, General Ryan Foster looked at the casualty reports. 43 ships lost, 2,316 military personnel killed, 427 civilians dead or injured in the attack on the Meridian Hope. Admiral Greg Coleman stood beside him. Was it worth it? Ryan thought about the question. "We're free, we're safe, the colonies are ours, but we're also the species that weaponized a star. We're the ones who burned Velcran Prime. History will remember that. History will also remember that we had no choice," Greg said. "They fired first. They threatened our civilians. They forced our hand. Does that make it right?" Greg had no answer to that. Around Earth's orbital space, the fleet maintained its positions. 893 ships, all ready, all watching. Humanity had proven it could defend itself. Now it had to prove it could live with what it had done. Across the galaxy, every species understood the new reality. Earth was no longer a minor power to be controlled or guided. Humanity was dangerous. Humanity was unpredictable. And most importantly, humanity was willing to do whatever it took to protect its own. The treaties were ash, just as Ambassador Hayes had promised. Humanity stood alone among the stars, unbound by galactic law, unrestricted by alien oversight. Free, but haunted by the methods of their freedom. Helen Carter stood in her laboratory beneath the Colorado mountains, looking at the Nova Protocol schematics. She had created a weapon capable of destroying solar systems. She had given humanity the power of gods. "We can never use this again," she said to her team. "Never. This has to be a one-time thing." But even as she said it, she knew the truth. The weapon existed. The knowledge existed. And if humanity was threatened again, if someone tried to take their freedom, they would use it. That was the burden they now carried. The knowledge that they could burn worlds. The knowledge that they would, if necessary. On Velcran Prime, the recovery efforts continued. Kethro worked with civilian organizations to restore power and communications. He broadcast regular messages to his people, urging them to learn from what had happened. "We brought this on ourselves," he said. "We laughed at the humans. We called them primitive. We thought we could control them. We were wrong. We must never make this mistake again. Not with humans, not with any species. Humiliation breeds anger. Anger breeds war, and war brings only ash." By dawn on the 8th day after the council session that had started everything, the last treaty document was formally dissolved. Humanity's representatives burned it at a ceremonial fire, broadcast across every network. Daniel Hayes watched the paper turn to ash. He thought about everything that had happened: the humiliation, the rage, the war, the victory. Katie Morrison stood beside him. "We're free now." "Yes," Daniel agreed, "we're free." But freedom had come at a terrible cost. Thousands dead, a world burning, weapons that violated every principle of civilized warfare. Humanity had proven its strength, but in doing so, had revealed its capacity for terrible violence. The ashes of the treaties drifted in the wind. Humanity stood alone, powerful and feared, carrying the weight of what they had done, and the knowledge of what they were capable of doing. The galaxy had learned a hard lesson. Humanity had learned one too. Never underestimate your opponent. Never humiliate those who seek peace. Never threaten their children. Because when you do, you might just learn what it means to fight a species that refuses to surrender, refuses to submit, and refuses to be controlled. The end was also a beginning. Humanity's story among the stars had truly started, not as subjects or children, but as equals who had earned their place through fire and blood, and the galaxy would never forget it.